Hey everybody. So, hello, how are you doing? I kind of felt like with what's been going on in my personal life right now, I've kind of been like in my relationship feels. So I've been together with my partner for about 7 years, in June. And I just kind of been feeling like right now my main focus has been, spirit, some tarot, making these videos, for anybody in any time, space, continuum, wherever. Um, Going through their own like different paths, and like that was my focus. And I just kind of felt like for a really long time I just felt like it was never good enough because of I was comparing myself to my future self, if that makes any sense. I wasn't comparing myself to others. It was just constantly hearing, what are you doing? What are you not doing? Like, why aren't you here? Why aren't you there? Like, things like that. And it's just like constantly like baiting myself down, self sabotage, excuse me. And I just felt like I was never good enough. So I just like let myself stew in that negativity, and it really like opened my eyes. So I'm like in the process of going through like shadow work myself for the last like 6 months. And mind you, shadow work is ongoing. Like you have a light and you do this in like little sections if need be, but not everything is just thrown at you hand and foot, you know what I mean? It's really, you gotta take time and digest. So I've been like going through some, with my relationships that I have, and I feel like I've disconnected with a lot of, people that were close to me, like my siblings. I have two older brothers, and I felt, a disassociation from the two people that basically, the two first men that really like helped raise me, you know what I mean? And I know that there is love there, and it's just like I don't want to intrude into their lives. Like one is married with a kid and the other is dating, and I don't want to say playing house with his girlfriend, but he has his own life, and they're, different states or whatnot. And so I just kind of felt like at 25, almost 26 years old, it's like, what am I doing still at home? Like, what can I be doing that does this? And I mean, granted, my path is my path, but it's really that aha, epiphany type moment, and like, my mom knows what's going on. Like, I've really had a heart-to-heart with her. I've had it with my partner, and it's just, like, getting the plan ready and putting the financial means behind it, And so I really just, like, felt like a loser, if that makes any sense. Like, I literally let myself believe that. And I was like, no more. No more self-sabotage. Like, get this done and get it out. And mom's like, you need an area code change. I was like, I know. Like, I've really been really trying to figure out if I want to move to, like, Texas or to Florida. But, God forbid, the shit that's been going on, with COVID, it's just like, is it affordable? So it's definitely, something to look into maybe this summer. So I've been going through that. I've been going through my own shadow work. And so I was in the bathtub because I started meditating every night before bed. And I was in the bathtub, a little TMI, but I was in the bathtub and I was doing my meditation, cleaning, cleansing, doing what I need to do. And, water has always been a very personal favorite of mine for meditating or just collecting the thoughts. I feel it just peace. I feel completely comforted by water, like blanketed on my terms. And so like when people aren't around, I just like to be in that natural state, you know what I mean? Because it's like we're made up of water, so it's return to the water. And everyone knows, like, if you don't know, like, I'm a Cancer, so I'm very moon child, you know what I mean? Water and the moon has just always like been the correlation for me, even before I got into like zodiac and astrology and things like that. So anyways, the point of this video, I'm just like rambling. So the point of this video is to talk about the different connections, because I know I see it all the time on Instagram, I see it on Facebook, I hear it, and people be like, oh my god, I found my soulmate, like, congratulations, like, you know what I mean, like, congrats. So I feel like anybody who is going into spirit or you've been on your spiritual journey, you know what it's like to have someone come into your life. Now, I don't like to be naive, you know, because I'm going through my own shadow work, so I'm really, you know, questioning the nature of these relationships. Like, I've deaded a couple past relationships that have tried to come in, and I'm just like, I'm over that. Like, I'm so over these people, like, temporary people that want to come in and out, like, every, like, few years. You know, and it's like, I've let them do it. You know what I mean? And I moaned and just, you know, bitched about it for so long to my partner. I'm like, I'm so irritated. Like, why is this happening? You know what I mean? Even when I say no, it's like, you know? So it's like really like remembering like the past is the past. Like, it's no longer there anymore. So that water should not hold weight. So it's like burning and uprooting that false foundation. And when I say false foundation, like specifically like a parent having a child or children, that you're giving them the home, they're giving you shelter, you're giving them education, you're doing all this. This is a false foundation, and it's not bad. It's a false foundation that is not their own making, if that makes any sense. So it's like when they get out in the world, after you've taught them, you've sheltered them, you've clothed them, you've fed them, you've guided them, you've done this, and that for them, the foundation that they create is their own foundation. That is their true foundation, regardless if it's uprooted or not. Wherever it takes them in the world or the universe, that is their foundation. So before they create theirs, it's a false foundation because it's set up by the people involved instead of actually firmly planting it into, you know, making it their own, if that makes any sense. So I look at that, you know, and I look at my foundations I have here with my mom. Like, I love my mom to death, but I honestly tell her, I'm like, I'm going crazy. I need to get the hell out. And, you know, cut the apron strings, and I feel it. She feels it. I'm pretty sure she's like, I'm ready to be an empty nester. I'm like almost 50 years old with a 25-year-old still living at home. Like, thank you. I appreciate that, you know? But yeah, so anyways, back to the whole meditation. I'm so off track. So, soul connections. And I honestly was thinking about this because I had this moment where I was just ready to just give up. Like, I wanted to pursue tarot. I still am. You know, and doing that as a job, you know, and to help people. And I just kept thinking, how can I help people? How can I help people solve their problems? Meanwhile, I was using it as a coping mechanism so I could basically run from my own problems with spirit and with my own life, you know? And it's like, I can't do that. Like, I have to solve my own to help other people because, like, it's so confusing. And I heard this, like, voice that wasn't my own voice. It wasn't spirit. It wasn't something I was familiar with. So it's like, take it with a grain of salt, you know? And I heard, you know, in 3 years, I will see you. Like, keep having this faith, keep continuing this path, like, I will be there, you know? And I just kept thinking, who is this voice? Like, where is this coming from? And I remember, like, trying to pull tarot cards and a pendulum, and I was just like, what? And I created a deck of just cards, you know, maybe spirit would like to say, you know, if you've had loved ones, or something. So there's like astrology signs in there, you know, because sometimes energy is not the actual sign of, say, this person or this person. It's the energy that's coming in, that's manifesting in this soul that it's taken on. Or it's the season in which it was coming through, you know what I mean? A lot of us are going through, yes, we're very emotional with Pisces, right? It's very, very intuitive with the emotions. But it's also harboring, you know, the next start, the new cycle that is coming at the end of this month, which is Aries. So a lot of times people are having this fire, this drive, this like conflict that's going on that they're not feeling, but they're gearing up for it. And I see Taurus, and I hear the name Chris, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this person's my mom's higher conscious. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, I'm like, okay, so how old are you? And they're like, oh, you know, in 3 years I'll be like 35, 36. So I'll be like, oh, okay. And I'll be like, okay, and how are we supposed to meet? But they're like, oh, you'll figure that out traveling. Like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not pushing it. It's just interesting to have this, to be like, okay, this is what you're telling me. I'm taking this with a grain of salt. Because this could be like what I'm going through emotionally that makes me think maybe this was all in my head. Is this an actual person subconscious talking to me or what? So I wanted to get into this like quick, like all over chit chat. Was talking about the different notions of soul contracts. Now a soul contract is the life that you are living this incarnation. Now it's events that are majorly set in writing, basically, of the soul that brings in people at these major events. So these are bound to happen. Yes, it doesn't always happen, and it could be scratched, replaned, whatever. But these major points usually will happen one way or another. So if it doesn't happen in this life, it will happen in another. That it's just a twisted scenario. It just reverses what, be like, okay, back to the drawing board. This situation didn't happen, so let's put in another variable and run this simulation, like, you know? So, and then, you know, you have things that are minor that you may pick up on lessons, you know, throughout, you know, your years to be like, okay, she learned this lesson, so maybe we'll give her like a small little lesson and see where this goes. Like, it's something like that. And I was just like, what? Like, okay. And anyways, we were talking and I bounced this off of her, and I was just thinking in the bathtub that I think as a general, kind of not a rule of thumb, but a guideline, is I think anybody starting off on their spiritual journey or even in through, I kind of feel like we put blinders on when you think, oh my God, like I could potentially have a twin flame. I can have a soulmate. I can have this, this, and that. Like, I really feel like it's very misconstrued, because I feel like the term soulmate, twin flame, karmic partner, or some type of pattern is man-made. Yes, it happens, and you know what I mean, to explain it, but does it actually work like that? So twin flames, the notion of a twin flame is usually two halves of the same soul cut from the same energy cloth. Correct. Yes. So then I got to thinking, what if instead of having the two souls that merge because they know nothing but wholeness, together, unity, harmony, you know what I mean? They know all this good emotion that we strive as humanity, we cling to because we crave this. It's one of our desires, is to be loved, to be cared for, to be deeply nourished and balanced. You know what I mean? We don't like to feel discord or disharmony, disalignment, dishonesty. Just in general, you know what I mean? We don't like to feel these dark emotions that we as humanity have. You know, so I got to thinking, what if it's a twin flame as your higher self, you know, talking, that's like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna like stick in the you know, I'm basically the eyes in the sky, and I'm gonna reel you in, you know what I mean? Like that Jiminy Cricket, like, oh, here's your conscious, you know what I mean? Like, even it's your subconscious, like, it's your higher self, right? And that's just your eyes in the sky. Like, that's what initially I always thought a twin flame was necessarily not another entity that was cut from the same energy as you. You know what I mean? Because you are your own entity. So I feel like twin flames, specifically because the notion of a twin flame, and I've said this, is, you know, twin flames notions are usually cut from the same cloth. It's the same energy. They just split down the middle, right? Twin flames into my notion and basically to my studies and basically my meditative, you know, happenings and things. Twin flames are usually two separate entities. You know what I mean? It's two separate entities. They just mirror and they take on the same energies because they're passing it, you know, in through their, you know, etheric fields. They're passing this, and a lot of times it mirrors, because a lot of times, like, these mirroring energies is the mirroring amount of lessons or past lives this soul has accumulated. So that's when they say, like, the law of attraction, you attract things to your energy because your energy masks those or mirrors those energies. So that is the notion of a twin flame, is the law of attraction. And I honestly think we as a society need to stop telling people, stop thinking of a soulmate, stop thinking of a twin flame, stop thinking of a karmic partner, and just look at them as contracted individuals. They will come into your life to teach you lessons. regardless if they're platonic, they're lovers, they're teachers, they're mentors, their parents, their children. These things all have individual that they can all interrelate. These are individuals in your soul family, your soul group that incarnate when they need to incarnate and pull into your life. So, soulmates. Yes, there is a high frequency love there with soulmates. But when we think a mate, we're thinking like in the traditional sense of Europeans, you know, or like English, to be like, oh, or maybe even like Australian, you know, to be like mate as in a friend, you know what I mean? A close pal, buddy, whatever. Versus a mate, when we think, you know, in movies like you see in Hollywood, it's like, oh, or with animal kingdoms, it's a mated pair, meaning two have mated, specifically for swans. And I feel like that's where the notion of a twin flame and a soulmate have come across, because we as humanity observe the animal kingdom and they see like, oh, they have one mate and they mate for life, and it's deep, long sorrow. You know, once that mate passes, you know what I mean? It's like they break their own hearts and they die of a broken heart. You know what I mean? Like, I think we as humanity over-exaggerate that. So I feel like as a notion of the way spiritual works is that we put that blinder on. We're thinking, okay, you know what? I'm coming into this world alone. And, you know, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life alone. I'm going to have a soulmate. I'm going to have this person I'm going to have a family with. You know what I mean? Like, be a family with. There's so much love. It's whatever, you know, I need. And this is saying no, because you can be your own soulmate. You don't have to. It's whatever lesson you chose to take in your soul contract. And so I honestly feel like even with karmic relations, like relations that keep repeating, is because you didn't learn them the first time. It's a coping mechanism. It's an enabling to be like, okay, you know what? I have these bad habits. This person's bad. And it's the need to want to fix something. You know what I mean? And we, as a notion, we look at people that we've had past lives with, or souls that we've had past lives with, and we think, oh, you know what? We were lovers in this life. You know, so you must be a karmic relationship coming right back. You know what I mean? If it's good or it's bad. You know, a push and pull type relationship. And with twin flames, because of the halves are, from what I've read, that it's just super intense. You know, there's a level of immaturity on both sides. So it's like, okay, yeah, there's separation. They're not used to being whole. They're used to going about their life on their own. So having this person there kind of just like pulls them this way, and to be like, okay, you know what? I'm not my own person anymore. I have someone that relies on me, that loves me and pushes me and does this and makes me want to do better. And sometimes it's immature. So it's like, if you're a mature person in this relationship, if you happen to come across that mirroring energy that you've attracted at a higher frequency, sometimes it's like an on and off, because sometimes you just need space. You know what I mean? There's a reason for separation, and it's because it's an intense energy. It really is. And we as humanity, we love conflict. As much as we hate to say this, we love toxic conflict, even with ourselves, but with other people, because of the fact that it makes us feel needed. So I feel like we as a society, we need to feel love, and we need to feel this anger and all these emotions, when in spirit is telling us like, no, because you're hurting yourself. So I honestly just think that a twin flame, even though I'm saying we should do away with having this, because it jades you into thinking, I'm going to get this. You know what I mean? It's like we were born in the womb, unless you were a twin or a triplet or so on and so forth. But if you were a single, like you were born in the womb, you will return to that cosmic womb alone. Yes, you will be guided back into the spiritual realm by your soul group, or, you know, people that you may have lost, and, you know, loved ones that you found, you know, that may have passed before you or something. Like, will welcome you back to basically, so you're not overwhelmed. You know what I mean? It's a unity. You know what I mean? There is strength in numbers in the spiritual realm with your soul group specifically, or those guides that are guiding you through. I just feel like we as a society need to stop romanticizing these spiritual connections, because it's harder on us to level up when we know we expect something. And that's the sad thing, is a lot of us see that we expect rewards. Now, to be honest, before I got involved with my partner and got more into spirituality, mind you, like the last, I want to say like 10 years of my spiritual journey, but specifically like the last 8 that I've known my partner, I just been like really deeply rooted in my spirit. And I just like, oh my God, you know what I mean? It's the most intense love I've ever had, you know what I mean? And it's not something to be like, you know, it's irritating. It's something that you work on, because you know that you can't be the person that you were, because things like that don't slide. How are you ever going to evolve if you don't leave the shore? How are you going to explore if you're constantly looking at the coast, or you're looking for light? You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to go through these turbulent waters of life to really find your safe haven, to where you're going. It's just, don't stagnate yourself by perpetrating that, oh, I need this and I need this because Hollywood or peer pressure or society, whatnot. And this is saying, like, it's okay to be by yourself, because I know a lot of souls, they crave this love because the world is so messed up, it messes with them. And it takes a very strong individual to like hush out that background noise and these background, like, you know, backseat people that are just constantly chattering in your ear. And I have this problem because I am a people pleaser. I like to please people. It makes me happy. But I get so overwhelmed by doing so. And so, like, I'm the type of person, I like to feel, you know, the needs of other people and then basically come to me. And I was telling my partner, I felt so ashamed saying this, but I was telling him last night, we had this conversation, and I told my mom this, and I was crying. Like, I legit was like tearing up, and I am not the person that likes to cry. I felt deeply ashamed to tell my boyfriend I was jealous of myself for giving him more love than I've given myself. You know what I mean? And that hurts to say that I was jealous of the love that I give my own partner. My love for my partner. Knowing the fact that he gives it tenfold to me. And yet, I've always had problems with self-esteem. I've always had low self-confidence. I have a very high stress level. And that's going by. But it's like, I've listened to people for so freaking long. Even though I'm a self-doubter, I'm overlanded, you know, things like that. Like, I feel like that. And I was just like, that was my rock bottom. To be like, this cannot go long. You know what I mean? Like, I need to change. Like, this sad, depressing, like, child that is happening right now is saying, like, I neglected my child. You know what I mean? I neglected this inner child of mine. And it breaks my heart to know this. And, like, this is why I was like, okay, today is the day I start meditating every day to get in contact just a little bit more with my inner self, with no, you know, repercussions, no expectations, no nothing. And I honestly feel like we as a society needs to take time and pray, like to ground out and actually pray and figure out what we want. You know what I mean? So it's like, instead of doing all this, that we just constantly just bottle everything up and expect everything to be, you know, icing on top of the cake all the time. You know what I mean? It's a mask. And I just honestly, like I said, in my personal opinion, I feel like anybody starting on their spiritual journey, like, yeah, it's nice to have a person that you get to come home to and you get to spend time with that sees you for everything that you are and what, you know, society doesn't think of you. They think of you. It's just like, please do not let yourself feel like you have to put yourself on the back burner. You know, and I feel like that, and it's so saddening that it took me 25 years. It literally took me 25 years to figure this shit out. And I was telling my mom, I was like, you know, I've been together with my partner since I was 19, okay? Like, I met him, I was 18, I was fresh out of high school, you know, about to start college. And, you know, I was going through a really rough patch, you know? I was bullied in high school. Yeah, like, imagine that, you know? But I was just always so quiet, and I was just so fed up with people, and I didn't talk about it. I had like one friend in high school, I'm not joking, and her and I rarely don't talk. But it is what it is. You know, my best friend is my partner. He was the one person that understood me better than anybody besides my mom. You know, like, my partner is my family, but I just don't look at things that a lot of people don't. So I just wanted to say I'm going to do a quick reading for the general collective. I actually have a new deck, so I'm learning, and this is like a pause. So I bought Primordial Tarot, and like when I started into tarot and like wanted to buy my own deck, this was the first deck I saw that I was just like, oh, it ignites a fire. I wanted it. And I bought, the first 2 decks I ever bought was a deck for myself and one for my mom to say thank you. Anyways, and it was like Beyond the Maria for her to connect with the Lemurian legends and that energy and things like that, because we both believe that, you know, Lemurian things like that do exist. You know what I mean? And we tell stories, and stories have some type of grain of truth into them. You know what I mean? We just look at it different and be like, oh, it's legend. You know what I mean? Like, there was a form of truth and moral to stories that ancients passed down that we just say hearsay. You know what I mean? It's a comfort. You know what I mean? It's a connection to the past. And so it's like, how many like civilizations around the world have the same flood myth? It's different names at a different time and different characters. You know what I mean? Set in different locations, and yet they're all strikingly similar because they all came from one belief system. So the images in this deck are pretty primordial, like Neanderthal, you know, type early civilization. You see like Venus, early images of Venus, or fertility goddesses or gods around the world, you know what I mean? Carved out of like clay and bone or rock, you know. So that's what this is, you know, and this is going back. There's one in the deck that talks about like remembering Stonehenge, you know, things like that. Those primordial ancient ancestors from 100,000, 50,000, 10,000, you know, so on and so forth for the last time. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. So, I mean, just the spiral image, you know what I mean, of the horns and the bone and things like that. It's super interesting to know that everything will always be free flowing. The source will always be free flowing. It will always survive. There will always be infinite cycles. And this is what it's saying, is like nothing will ever just stop being. You know what I mean? So, the first card. Now, when I see this card, I just think of, there's a beast below the surface, if that makes any sense. And this is just something that it chips away at us. It constantly just wants out, and it's something you just can't cage, you know, you can't run from it. And this is what this is saying. It is just like with the rhinoceros, is like it's ready to charge, you know, to be head on. And this is saying sometimes our emotions run super hot, and it's all over the place. And sometimes, like, when it's provoking the beast, you just want to snap and take someone's head off, or just, you know, impale them with, you know, your horn. And that's not what that is, you know, best, but hey, it is, but we think that, you know. So we have the animal of the soul. The hunter tracks the rhinoceros, a dangerous animal of famous poor eyesight. Because this animal is easily spooked, the hunter must know its ways and stay quiet. He knows to keep out of the beast's sight. If he loses sight and sudden noise scares the rhino, the resulting charge will cost the hunter his life. The rhinoceros is apt metaphor of our shadow, the dark parts of our soul. Unless we view them clearly, they sneak up on us, wreaking havoc in our lives. Most importantly, we have to learn to hunt these parts and capture them, symbolically integrating them to become a whole. This minor version of the ritual death of the shaman, a virtue and version that we experience over and over as we continue our inner shadows to light. Meaning, it's like, sometimes you have to basically master this beast. Sometimes you have to put it out of its misery so it doesn't wreak havoc on else. You know what I mean? Because it's like, one thing can trigger you and basically you can do more good than, bad, things. So sometimes it's saying that sometimes you need to do very little bad to do a greater good. And I'm not saying, mass murder or anything like that. Sometimes it hurts really bad to go through shadow work. It breaks your heart and it makes you feel super emotional. And sometimes you lash out. I'm the type of person, I'm not good with pain. So when I get super emotional, I get really cranky. And sometimes I'm just ready to provoke a fight. You know what I mean? It's like I'm a metaphoric thorn in someone's side. And that's how I just am, not even with shadow work, just in pain. I had surgery. I had surgery in, I think, 2019, January of 2019. And I got my chest reduced. And with me, I had 38 double F, cup size. And this is not a Victoria's Secret bra. I'm talking $120, specially made bra. Yeah. Yeah. And I've just always struggled. I had double D's in high school. And then when I got out, I gained weight. And then boom, that happened. So I got it reduced. And my boyfriend was here for 2 months taking care of me. And I was just a bitch, man. I was so much pain. I wasn't taking pain meds. I was like, okay, I'm just going to take acetaminophen. I'm not going to take hydrocodone. I don't like how they feel. And, that's how I was. So it's that way of if I got to go through this, you got to go through it too, babe. That's how I was. And it's not the best. I joke about it now because, yeah. So anyways, it's paying attention to potential dangers, tracking problematic behaviors, and supervision and control of one's emotions and impulses. So it's don't provoke the beast. Sometimes if you study your behaviors, you know how to basically keep them in check. So then, okay, so this deck, the blue represents the cup. This represents, I know you would think pentacles. This is actually represent for the wands. The yellow is for the pentacles, the wants, and the needs. Black in this deck. We have a lot of cups. What would be cups? And the black, the black edge is the representation for the major arcana. So it takes a while to study, but in this nature, I kind of feel in this card, I really kind of feel watching, ancestral watching. And this is saying, take a step back and remember the source. Remember where you came from. Remember your lineage. Remember your spirit, if that makes any sense. That's really what I get. It says, the animal of nature, the monkey and the man, represent the evolutionary practices and processes. In many ways, biological the evolutionary distance between the two species is quite close. It could be easily to think and step away from one another. It's so small. However, the reality is the distance between animal and human is very large. This card represents the journey that reminds us from being human is hard. Ironically, we were born human, and we find each other spending much of our lives learning how to become human. It suggests that sometimes there's an effort to fight our lesser nature to evaluate our higher nature that takes a lot of us. When we become exhausted physically, mentally, and emotionally, or spirit, it's hard for people to be what they want. The wise thing to do is to take rest. Animals seem to do that better than humans. We aren't as smart as we think we are. It says, acknowledging a process made, assessing the state of being, and needing to take time to rest. So I really feel with this would really represent the meditation of the Four of Cups, but also the Four of Swords. So, like, evaluation, it's like reevaluate your things and just, like, you know, give yourself ample opportunity. Oh my God, ample opportunity to assess situations, but give yourself time to breathe. So this is saying, like, look back at where you've become and look back at this source knowledge that you've gained. And it's like, don't, like, nostalgic over what has been going on. Like, actually acknowledge the past to move on. So I really get, in this card specifically, like I said, I get more of the reflection of this. So that's what I see. And then we have the 8 of Jewels. And this is saying that I kind of feel like a lot of us we're saving face, if that makes any sense in this card. I really feel like we want things for so much that we get caught up in the wanting of these things that we don't assess the situation that we're in, that makes us think, hey, you know what, I actually don't need this. And so it's like, when you go about manifesting things, like, don't say, I want things, I need these things. I don't, you know what I mean? A need and a want are something completely different, because if you want it, you'll buy it. If you need it, you'll make it happen. You know what I mean? The universe doesn't usually, like, be like that. You know what I mean? It's a totally unexpected thing. So this goes back to the law of attraction. So if, like, you manifest, you don't say, I want these things, I need these things. You basically word it very carefully. Because the universe has a way of making you kind of, like, not give everything that it thinks that you need. Because, like, obviously the universe is a higher conscious. It's a higher being. Like, you know what I mean? It's evolved that much, you know, over billions of lifetimes, get alone trillions. And so it knows a thing or two and be like, you know what, I know what this person needs. It's something totally unexpected and they're not going to see it coming. So yes, like, be very careful if you do, like, positive affirmations or you do manifestation, because you don't want to say, I want or I need these things, because you're hindering that. You know what I mean? It actually has to come out of a place of sincerity. Spirit of the Jewels. Ultimate creative space, the womb. Prehistoric Venus statue celebrates and honors creation, femininity, and abundance. Humans use the symbol like magical talismans to draw into their desires. Simple symbols or markings have evolved into more complex items. The way they have evolved along with humans is thought and understanding. A statue like this may aid in pregnancy or culmination of any lifetime project. The woman may have made it herself or given it to a craftsman. Maybe she had a tribe's shaman bless it. So after successful completion, the statue would be used by others or put in a place of honor on an altar. So thanks may be given. So creation, power, sympathetic, prosperity, gratitude. So I kind of feel like, again, we want things and we say we need things, but it's like we're given exactly what truly is needed. You know what I mean? It's not petty desire. So this is saying take a bird's perspective, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to assess the situation and just sit back and assess it from a bird's point of view. What was it? Reiki Healing Hope. Jessica said something about, like, looking over a forest and seeing bright leaves, you know, the colors that we're so drawn to. It's very pleasing on the eye, but when things die, we don't no longer look at that pleasing, we just see barren, right? But it's like creation is still taking place, it's just at a slower rate. So this is saying when you look at a higher perspective, at a higher vantage point, you see everything that is going on that you would miss at just staring at the leaves, you know what I mean, of the tree, you know what I mean? You're seeing the higher ground. So this is saying, like, look, sometimes you have to climb to the highest tree to get a better perspective of the view that you're looking at, you know what I mean? So that's what it's saying is, you know, how you can help others, but you have to help yourself too, because it's like, if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, like, it's defeating the point. So the child of nature. A boy wants to reach the higher to see more. He climbs to a tree to get a broader view. He imagines what would it be like to rise, you know, from above the canopy. scenery curious, not driven by fear. He has learned the first lesson of finding and what to find in a place if he can see it clearly. He wants to be a broader perspective in vision. He cannot expect to find by looking in the same place, the same way, in the same place he always has. He knows that the second lesson, the attitude has a big effect on what he finds and seeks. This presents in the good way that surely he will find. So it's like clear view, new perspective, clarity, looking for and finding good news. So in the tarot, this would result, I really feel like this would be either the Two of Wands, being it's a perspective, or the Three of Wands, being that you're cultivating a new creation, abundance, whatever. But it's really like looking out. So I really get the Two of Wands in this card specifically. If anybody is like thinking that. So then we have the Ten of Souls, and immediately right after the Pact, I really see the lightning, you know what I mean? It's like turbulent, it's storming. We look at that and we're like, oh, we need to avoid lightning at all costs, you know? It's like, I hope you wore rubber, you know, things like that, like don't have anything metal. But this is saying like, sometimes you have to let things strike you down, like, and so you can get back up, you can rise from it. But this is saying like, let light illuminate. Don't be stuck in the darkness for so long that that's all you see, and you're just like, well, shit, now I need light. So then we have the Nine of Souls, and I really feel like sometimes we have like sacrificial death, if that makes any sense. I really get sacrificial death in that. Birth of a soul. The initiate is tied and prepared for ritual, the sacrifice of his life. It's not death, it's just peace passing into the next realm. The brutal tearing of the part of the body. The parts are destroyed. His body and his ego have dissolved into nothings. He's sacrificed for the good of the tribe, so that the good of the land. It goes willingly as he can. It's his duty and his calling. Every shaman goes through this initiatory experience of the ritual death in the spiritual realm. After the sacrifice, he's recreated and returns with the knowledge of life and death. Only now does he have the wisdom to truly serve the people. Meaning, sometimes it's hard, but it's necessary. Benefit from sacrifice, serving the greater good. So I really get the Hangman. There's a lot of different cards that mean this, but I really got sacrificial death in this. So this is saying sometimes you just, in order to not repeat things, you have to let yourself die. You have to go through your inner phoenix. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's painful, but that part of your life has to close. You know what I mean? And it makes you feel like we as a humanity, we do not like regret. We don't like, you know, not having closure. So it's like, if you can move on and actually be sincere about moving on, and you have no regrets or no nostalgia, then kudos to you, because that is super hard. And that comes from a very hard, like, training of your brain to be like, I can't live with this anymore. And I'm currently going through that right now. Is like, I have daddy issues. So I do have daddy issues. Like, anybody who knows, and this is what's messed me up for a really long time. Like, I love my dad to death, but I've told him in the past, and this hurts me to tell him this, is I wish him and his wife never sat me down at 16 and told me that he raised me even though I wasn't his biological child. I'm grateful, but it killed me, you know what I mean, to know that there was a dude out there, a sperm donor, right, that created a child that he may have never wanted, and was okay with having that child be raised by another human being. And then, you know, be like, oh, if you need anything, let me know. And I'll be like, oh, maybe I wanted to meet you. I wanted to do this. You know what I mean? And it never happened. Hopes, dreams, desires, you know, things like that. To be like, okay, this is where I come from. You know? Because it's like, at that point, it's like, I was so construed. I felt like my identity was just gone. And like, what I had gone through the year prior is like, I had lost my grandma to Alzheimer's. And it was super traumatic, being the fact that, like, I was really, really close to her growing up, you know? I was just like, I can't do that. And even to this day, like, I still am like, Why? Why was I never good enough for you? Like, why would you allow, like, why wouldn't you fight? Like, you just gave up. Like, I don't know what happened, but it's like, oh, like, I'll ask, like, okay, like, where is your family from? Like, you know, do you have any medical history or, you know, illness or anything like that I need to be concerned with, that in the future when I decide to have kids with my future partner, you know, or my partner or whatever, you know, that I have this information without, like, you know, obviously getting genetic testing and things like that, because it's a 50-50 toss-up. But it's just, like, simple things like that. It's like, don't you think you owe me that? But you don't. But it's like, you know, and it's getting over that. So, like, that's part of my shadow work, is releasing any, like, toxic anger that I have, like, towards, you know, my dad. And, you know, because I don't feel like that with my mom. I feel like that with, like, my dad, you know. And I'm not a big fan of his wife, you know, to be honest. I'm not. It's just, there's just things that, there is love there, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a forced, if that makes any sense. It's like you put on a mask and you be like, oh, I tolerate you, you know, because it's like, you're my dad's wife, I'm his daughter, you know, things like that. It was just always weird, you know, between us. And there was just things that happened, and I don't blame her, you know, but it's just like, that should have been my parents telling me. And I told, you know, them both, I was like, I wish you would have just let me be ignorant of the fact, because I went through such an identity crisis, you know what I mean? And I honestly felt like that, because it's like, growing up, like, my siblings are half Hispanic. My dad is second generation Mexican, you know, American. And, you know, that's how I grew up, was like, hey, I'm half Hispanic, you know what I mean? Like, my siblings are half Hispanic, and, you know, people were like, oh, why is she so white? It's like, well, like, the oldest is like my dad, really dark. My middle brother is pretty light, and I'm white, you know? That's why people used to call me Miracle Whip or Mayo, you know, compared to my siblings. Like, so, like, having that, and, like, with my grandma, you know what I mean? Like, I grew up calling her abuelita, like, you know, like my abuelita Pat. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I grew up, I'm like, yeah, my family's from Mexico, my family's from Spain. Like, that's what it was, you know? And I was just like, now what I do? Now I feel like a jerk for culturally appropriating, even though it's like, culturally I grew up there. You know what I mean? I grew up with these traditions, you know, that were passed down from my abuelita to me. And that's how I felt. And I was just like, God. And now it's just like, I don't care, you know what I mean? Because I was culturally raised, and my grandma's like, you're Hispanic at heart. That's all that matters. You know, and it's like, I had to actually explain my family situation for scholarships. I'm not joking. Because people thought, oh, you know, there's people out there that say that they're this, but they're not. You know, I actually had to explain, like, hey, this is my circumstance. Like, yes, I am Hispanic. I was raised in a Hispanic mixed house race. You know, hold. Like, my mom's white, my dad's Hispanic. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? I don't tell them, like, you know, and I still got denied for those scholarships. And you look at me with, like, blonde hair, you know, reddish blonde hair, green eyes, and be like, there is no freaking way you're Hispanic. Like, yeah, I get I'm European. Like, my family, you know, my mom's side comes from Ireland. Like, I get it. Ireland and, you know, England, from Wales, it's just, you know, and Germany, supposedly we're Dutch too. Like, just from Europe in general on my mom's side. So, long story short, the last card that I pulled was the 10 of the Major Arcana. So, I kind of feel clocked. I kind of feel like, oh, step down the rabbit's hole, like Pan's Labyrinth. Like, you know what I mean? And I really kind of feel like when I first saw this card, I'm like, you know, kind of like Aleister Crowley. Like, you know, staring at you, not like dread. But it's enticing to be like, oh, don't you want to learn the secrets? Like that temptation. Like, you know what I mean? I kind of feel like that. So I kind of feel clocked. So the 10, time, It is a complicated force of nature that shapes our lives in troubling and beautiful ways. It's both senile, cynical, and linear, natural and abstract. The feel of the cycles of our time, of our souls, is response to the seasons, the bursting of expansion in the summer, rusting dormant in the winter. We see the linear passage of time, that we grow but old but never young. These are the way we go and never return. These things have so much that we were just become a memory. So when we die and we feel remorse, we see a new life each spring and feel hope. We didn't really understand each time, but we knew that our time, our lifetime, and this one resource we could not make more of. So this is saying, I kind of feel like the Wheel of Fortune in this. I kind of really do feel like the Wheel of Fortune with cycles. So it says life cycles, change, patterns, possibilities, luck. So yeah, I just kind of felt like that. And like, to be honest, like I really feel like in Greek mythology, if you know anything about the Greek ferryman Charon, Charon was the one that ferried the souls into off the river Styx into the underworld. Now, Hades is the god of the underworld, but he is not the god of death. So I want you to understand, Charon was just his ferryman, meaning the fact that he was one of the first souls that souls would see on their voyage to do things, you know, the staging area. So I just want you to say, like, no matter what you are going through, like, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes you don't understand. It's don't live with regrets. Because the regrets are the most painful thing you will ever live with. So, cards, what messages do you have for the people who need to hear these messages? What messages do you need to hear? So, yeah. Apparently either they all needed to come out, or like this is like half the deck. So how many are there? Any messages in this deck, in this half of this deck? What messages do you have for these people? What message? It says, it's time to heal and leave this unhealthy situation. Archangel Michael, the parts of my life, what do I need to heal and focus more closely on right now? Thank you for helping me hear your answers and giving me the courage to make healthy changes in my life. It says, ask Archangel Michael to help you with this situation. Archangel Michael, thank you for assisting me. Describe your situation. Please help me be fulfilled with faith and peace at all times. It says, pay attention to your dreams. Archangel Michael, thank you for tucking me into bed tonight, and it helped me enjoy a wonderful, restful night's sleep. Archangel Michael, I invite you into my dreams as my teacher, my guide, and my healer. Please allow me to understand, describe your situation as a spiritual level, and teach me guidance. And this is positive thoughts create positive results. Divine love, wisdom, I call upon you now. I know that in my mind, my emotions are internally and consciously connected to you. I ask my higher self to be aware of the conscious love and light that is within every person. Starseed Oracle, what messages do you have? It says, empathetic starseed, energetic sovereignty, observing what is yours. So this is saying disconnect from any type of situation or any type of people that are empathy, and do the dimmer switch technique, meaning that freaking if you feel like you're just overwhelmed, like taking in other people's energy, and it's just like making your anxiety and rampant, this is saying switch that off. Like, just switch it off like a light switch, and just like flip it and be like, I'm not doing this. I'm not gonna be empathetic today. Like, I'll be sympathetic to you, but I'm not gonna take your emotions. I'm not gonna let them affect me. So I'm really saying dimmer switch, or the light switch technique, and just switch it off. This is not switching off your abilities or your spirit or anything like this. Then we have double mission, and it says, light worker starseed, serve the world by being you. Embrace your true self. And I'm hearing your true north node for anybody who's in astrology. So I have that. And then I have Normally these would be for soul connections if I'm channeling a loved one or something. So this is saying like, hey, you cannot fix me because I am not broken. For anyone who needs to hear this, like, this person, if you're in a relationship with, and this is the situation you need to feel, or you feel like you're screaming this out because people are just all over you, the situation that you are in, you have to heal yourself before anything else can heal. Like, that person will not heal if you are not there. You know what I mean? You cannot bug this person. Everything has to do it on their own time. Like, situations are there for a reason. Do not mess with their soul contract, because they literally were put in this situation. So they have the power to change it. They have the time to change if they want to. So shady shit at work. And for some of you, signs in motion bringing us together. Have faith. So thank you so much for tuning into this, and I hope this clears up anything that you may be going through, maybe like a little chit chat, you know, understand me what is going on. I may not post next week. I just want to say that I might not post, so thank you.